Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm in a different spot because I'm currently writing book reviews, and I thought in the process of composing this written review I would go ahead and make this video for In the Garden of Spite by Camilla Bruce. This book was released January 29th, I believe, and I've had it since maybe November or December, but I just got to it. I've been asked or pressured or coerced by my friend Fashawn to get this book read, especially since I recently read and reviewed The Lost Apothecary, and that was about a woman who created tinctures or concoctions in order to help women get rid of their husbands because of the time period. I believe it was the 17 or 1800s. Their divorce wasn't something that was popular, so she was an apothecary who created these incredible, I guess I use the word concoctions again. So after Fashawn saw that I did that review, she's like, how could you go ahead and read the Lost Apothecary when you've had In the Garden of Spite all of this time? And I'm like, because I know it's going to be harder to read. Well, the other day I pulled this book out, Little Women, to reread. It's probably my 10th time. And she's like, no, you're not going to reread Little Women before you read, excuse me, I have something in my eye, In the Garden of Spite. So I said, okay, fine. So I cheated and I read a Rick Riordan book first, The Lost Hero, which I don't know if I'll review that now because I want to read the rest of the series. And then I committed to reading In the Garden of Spite. So I read it in, I don't know, 6 hours or so, 480 pages. Boom, I couldn't put it down. I did have trouble with the last chapter. Now, I did something with this book that I don't generally do. And I looked at a couple of reviews because it's mystery thriller, it's historical fiction, but it's based on the real life story of Belle Gunness, who is one of the world's most brutal female serial killers. She started in the late 1800s, and her stories went to the first 7 or 8 years of the 1900s. Now, I looked at these reviews because I read I know I'm talking about other books, but you'll kind of hopefully understand why. I read The Whispered by Alex North last year, and that was the creepiest book I ever read. And I still have sleeping issues because of reading The Whispers. So I read a few opening lines of book reviews on Goodreads for this book here, which by now I would have edited this and stuck the cover up there, In the Garden of Spite, because I didn't want another book that was going to give me nightmares. I just didn't want it. And then Fashawn tells me, but you know what, Robin? There are multiple podcasts on this woman. And I don't do podcasts, and I don't watch, whether listen or watch them on YouTube. I just don't really have the time because I'm always reading. So I said, okay, I'm going to read this book, and I surprisingly could not put it down. And so when I started this book, I knew going in, and even you can't see it here on the cover, and I want to just enlarge in the cover on Goodreads. I just want to see if you had the cover, if what I think is on there would show. I'm going to enlarge in it. Let me see. Let me shrink this a little bit. Man shall inherit the earth unless she kills him first. And then it says, a novel of the Black Widow of Laporte. So I knew what I was going into. And I just wanted to kind of look at the smaller print on the cover because you're really not going to be able to see that yourself in this video. So, with all that said, 5 minutes into this review, let's talk about who the person was that we're talking about. We're talking about Belle Gunness. Now, that wasn't her name as a child. I'm gonna go see. Her name was only used in the first few chapters. Let me see if I can find out. Let's see. I don't know. I can't. Just give me a second, please. Oh, I see. I'm at the end of the book. No wonder I can't find her name as a child. I can't remember what her Brynhild, 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 and she changed her name to Belle, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So, Brynhild or Belle, and we're going to go forward and refer to her as Belle. Belle grew up in Norway. This was around 1877 when the story began. She experienced unspeakable horror, brutality that it's any wonder she survived it. I won't tell you what that is, but she experienced something horrible. And aside from that, she lived in a very, very poor farmhouse. Her father drank, he controlled, he was abusive, and he disregarded his children, and he treated his wife horribly, and all she dreamt of was getting out. Now, she had an older sister named Nellie who did get out, who did get to America and marry and got away from all that darkness. So this is what Belle started to dream of, is I want to get away. I'm going to get to America. So Nellie would write home, and one day a letter had come in, and the mother had written Nellie back, and then Belle took the letter and she wrote saying that Brunhild is, I know I said I was going to refer to her as Belle, but Brunhild is not doing well. She really needs to get away. Is there anything that we can do? But Belle wrote this as if it was the mother writing it. So when Nellie gets the letter, and we're talking about 1800s, so it could have been a month or more before Nellie actually received the letter, because the letter has to travel over water on ships. So when Nellie gets the letter, she says to her husband, we've got to help my sister. And they were poor. Now, Nellie grew up poor, and she's still poor in America, but she's happy. She has a young son. But somehow, some way, they figure out how they're going to help Belle get to America. So it takes some time, and Belle does eventually get, I see a typo in my review, but I won't worry about that. Belle eventually does get to America, and this is really good for Nellie, because Nellie is constantly having problems in her pregnancies, and she, as I mentioned earlier, she has a young son, so she's hoping that Belle will step in and help her out, because she's got to do things like go to the river and carry buckets of water, and she does laundry to bring in money, so she is overly taxed physically. But Belle gets there, Belle arrives, and Nellie sees that Belle has a darkness to her. What did I say in my review? She said that, I'm talking to the camera, but I'm glancing over at my draft. It's only a draft. But Nellie sensed a darkness in Belle, something that is something that she thought she saw when Belle was a young child, but now Belle's, I think, 17, 18, 19 years old. I can't remember quite now. But Nellie sees that it's much, much deeper. But Belle doesn't really want to help her sister. She wants to roam the streets, taste sweets. She even starts going to church and teaching nursery school. And eventually, Belle does marry and she marries another Norwegian. And I hope I said that they're from Norway. I'm pretty sure I did. So Belle does marry a Norwegian, and now Nellie's like, okay, my sister will be settled. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I thought about it, and I decided to note it in my review, and my written review, and I'll say it here. The author, Camilla Bruce, took a real story, and if you want to look this up on any encyclopedia, or you Google it, or Wikipedia, or you YouTube it and look up podcasts, what the author did is she took a lot of literary license when she composed the story. And a lot of that literary license came in the form of Nellie. But what it did is it took a brutal, difficult, dark story to give us an interesting and thought-provoking view or point of view so we can understand a side of Belle that we might not have been able to get if we just looked at the story in her point of view. So just keep that in mind. So, as I mentioned, now Belle is married. She has this husband, and what else did I say that I wanted to bring out? Okay. I think I only want to go so far because I don't want this to have spoilers. But I will say this, because I've already shared part of the quote that's on the book cover that says that she was the widow of Laporte. So why did Belle become famously known as the widow of Laporte? Well, her husband died. And that's what I am not going to say. I'm not going to say how he died. I'm not going to tell you about their marriage or anything like that. So, fast forward, because this is important. Up until now, Belle lived in Chicago. And now she's a widow. And as a widow, she's like, okay, I'm going to buy a farm. And I'm going to move my children. And how she has children, you'll have to see for yourself in the story. And we're going to live on the farm. And that's when it begins. Now, some things had already happened, but boy, does it fast forward from here. I mean, it fast forwards. We're talking about brutality, gruesomeness, pretty dark. Pretty dark. And I don't want to say much more other than to say that Camilla Bruce did a fine job composing the story. I did, like I said, watch some podcasts, but I don't know if there's been other fictional stories about Belle Gunness. That I did not check. But what the story was to me as a reader was understanding how somebody could become so disturbed, because the book is named In the Garden of Spite. Now, I want to talk about the word spite for a minute. Remember I said Belle experienced a really traumatic event when she was in Norway, and that it was any wonder that she survived? She lived due to spite. She spitefully survived. It took weeks for her to recover. And her whole life, in her mind, while she was recovering, was everything that she was going to do going forward was based on that word, spite. I don't know enough about the historical aspect of this woman, if spite was something that was used in history, but at least in this book by Camilla Bruce, spite is what drove Bella. And in her effort to live based on spite, she was kind of an exterminator. And the vermin in her life had to go. Now, along the way, there was another character, James Lee. Now, I could have talked about him 10 minutes ago. there was another character, James Lee, in the story. And he was a driving force behind some of the things that Belle did. So they were a matched pair. They never married or anything like that. I'm not gonna. That's not a spoiler, but I did want to mention James Lee because with her having this damaged psyche, and like I said, as a reader, I'm trying to understand what the author Camilla Bruce was doing in the story, and it was getting into the mind, the dark, disturbed mind of a depraved killer. Is the character James Lee was written in a way just like the character of Nellie was written in a way for the reader to understand the inner workings of that mind. I think it was a great book. I gave it 5 stars. No, I'm not praising brutality and glorifying. There's no such justification. Nothing like that. Just a very good story if you like crime fiction, which I really don't. I think I probably have read 5 in my life, if I've even read that many. But this isn't really crime fiction. It's historical fiction based on a true historical event. Or it's a true historical event fictionalized in a novel format. And that's what it is, In the Garden of Spite. There's my review. I'm going to go back and finish my rough draft. I will publish this video and this review today, March 18th, after I edit it. I'll edit both of them because I've got to edit this to incorporate the book cover, and I've got to edit my written review in order to get the links up and the images up. So that's my review. All right, bye-bye.